in the Saltanovka scenario. So where you see the camo pattern, trees, lichen, is all dense terrain, dense wood. There are two roads running through the wood from the south to the north, where the darker road is a good road for the time, and the road, it looks like a dirt road, is a poor road. We have a stream leading into, I believe, the Dnieper River. The stream is in a gully and is kind of wet and marshy land within that stream. So where you see the lichen and what we'll call swampland and stream, all of that is also dense terrain. Coming all the way out to here where the actual Dnieper River runs, and we've got swampy, low-lying ground, all dense terrain. We have several villages. I believe that is the actual Saltanovka village. These villages have been fortified. The bridge has been broken, and the river is fordable across its entire length, but obviously the French got up here and kind of had at least some intelligence that there was a mass of Russian troops close by, just as the Russians had some intelligence on what the French were bringing up. So the French fortified the villages, built some fortifications also down closer to the river where the crossing points are, either at the bridge or in this case is a ford that's used. So these are some strong point areas, and then again the rest of the table, you have your dense woods, and the rest of this is just open ground. French will be deploying or coming on the table from the north, or actually start deployed. Russians will be over here to the south side of the table. That's it. That is the ground that will be fought over at this particular juncture.
Nice. I like this because the last game we played had some terrain, but this has a lot of terrain, so it's going to be really highlighting the importance of movement and deployment in the dense terrain and the penalties with that, and then troop management beyond just the tactical aspects. But now, how do we successfully move them up to engage? Very good.
The other thing to point out from the last game, last time we played, most of the formations were not very large. They had perhaps 5, at most 6 battalions assigned, which pretty much made them brigade size. This particular engagement has formations that are much larger and are really at this point divisional sized. Case in point, we're looking at a French formation with 15 assigned battalions. So I think we're going to be exercising other parts of the kind of command phase and leader decisions, because as a group these 15 may be a little bit unwieldy. We might have to use the create a detachment. For example, maybe each one of these lines here represents a full regiment with 5 battalions. Perhaps, the French may want to create a detachment to create a reserve out of one of these regiments. Yeah, it's a lot of firepower there.
Yeah, then we'll take a look at the Russians. They're pretty big too. The other thing too is if you didn't make detachment but try to bring them all on as a formation, that's a rather long line, which means they probably won't all deploy in one shot like we were doing before. So you have to be concerned about the movement when switching from ploy to deploy, because they have to maintain that 225 yards until everybody out of that formation is deployed. So again, that will also kind of limit what you can do with these large groups. And it looks like there's a lot more French than Russians this time. But that's the beginning setup. What we're going to do differently too in this video is last time we filmed, pretty much just sat the camera, filmed the whole thing, our discussions, thought process on things, movement. What we'll do after this is we'll move, have everybody in position, and then before we do the skirmishing and combat, that's when we'll come back and film skirmishing and combat. That way, we're focusing on that. So a little less on the, just watching us talk rules through and try to focus more on the action of the game. Alright, so we'll come back when we're ready to go. Well, just a quick pop in before we actually start play. We were talking about the scenario and what we're trying to do. And this would have been a great one where if we had a host, a third-party referee, we could have made it a little more secret as to what the Russians needed to do and what the French had to do. But since it's just two of us and we have the order of battle and the victory conditions, then there's not a whole lot of surprise. And I'll just share with you kind of some of our thoughts. So we're doing the Battle of Saltanovka, and we already looked at a lot of troops that we have. And basically, we're just going to boil it down to, I'm going to take this great historical battle and just say the Russians chose spoiler attack. And we're going to basically prevent the French from moving south into the woods. And then the French are going to try and move south. And as Tom was giving me a quick historical, I can't do as good as him, but just a brief. Since neither side always knows exactly the intent of the other, the French were reinforcing the cities or the villages because they thought the Russians were going to come up. And then the Russians weren't sure exactly if the French were coming. So we got kind of boiled down to the French or the Russians are going to defend the south when historically they actually had moved north. And that may happen, but without that kind of a third-party fog of war type of thing, we kind of have chosen in a way what we're going to do. So the questions that we had that we'll figure out as we play, the idea is to keep two French divisions from getting into this wooded area. But it doesn't necessarily say how much of a division. Is that just 1 or 2 battalions, 5 battalions? How much has to be in the woods, and then how far into the woods? Are we talking just into the edges? So it could be a rather short scenario based on that. And so other considerations that I have is the Russians is where do I deploy to prevent those divisions from coming in, and when do I start the deployment? The scenario rules say that the Russians can at any point along their path start their deployment activities, and then we have to decide where to put stuff. Now, one thing is we have a lot of artillery which will be pretty pointless in the woods. So part of the defensive strategy, since I've decided I'm defending the southern woods, is where do I come out and just deploy everything in that little bit of clear space between the woods and that river there, stream, whatever you want to call it. And so that's a big thing too, because the artillery, if we don't move forward, it's kind of pointless. And I did notice that Tom has got on the French side there, without zooming in too much, he does have a little bit of cavalry, like a very small, that we can't see. We don't know they're there, but they're not.
These are just extra figures.
Just that. Well, I see those two right there. So just the two. Okay, so just those two right there. And that, it's like, what could he do with that? So it's interesting. We have a couple of things that the the terrain might not let us use the full strength of those attachments. So this is a very interesting scenario that we will have to figure out how best to approach, knowing what we know, and we'll see what happens from there. But anyway, that's kind of the briefing of what we're doing with this scenario. All right, we'll be back at another point to play. And we are back with an initial deployment of French troops. So we'll call that Division 1. I don't know what it really is, but we'll just say that's Division 1 because they're the first ones on the board. They're all along that river bank there. And that gives some food for thought for my Russian deployment as I come up the road. I mean, generally, I'm pretty much coming right up the road, and it's a matter of when do I start deployment. So this road here, they said, is the under-improved road, so it gave no road benefit. So they'll be moving in the 75-yard scale that we play about 20 inches. So initially they can move up to ish. I'm not good at guessing. But that might not be enough to get all of the troops onto the table. So when we deploy, yeah, it's just going to be interesting. We'll see how it goes. That's not the part we'll film. We'll film after we've deployed so you can see what that looks like when we start movement and whatnot. But I just want to give you an idea of what the initial French deployment was. And now the considerations I have to take in mind is where am I going to put my troops to prevent them from crossing? Because we did mention you can cross. All of this is crossable, so they can just come straight across if they want. So really I got to think about where am I going to try and stop them at. And he's got one long line, so there's nothing down here. If they come just like that, there might be supporting each other. That was one thing we didn't think or talk about either. We said we could make detachments, but at the same time, if you double up so you have supporting elements behind each other, it might not be as unwieldy. But again, it really just depends on how we get our initial deployments out, what's going to make sense. Anyway, there we are. So I should have I wish I knew when to turn this on earlier to capture. Tom explains things better. But essentially what Tom did a leader action to make 2 detachments. So he's got a group over here that's now a detachment. This center group is, he didn't roll for them to be a detachment, but they're by themselves now because these folks over here now are a detachment. So in essence, he's almost got 3 things. So our basic understanding of the rules is he rolled, it's a leader action, he passed. And so it says that the units from formations, wherever they may come from, they flock to the new commander. So what we did was we just assigned a generic commander from the book and just said that this group is now under the generic infantry formation commander. He still has the original formation commander for everyone else that's not in the detachment. And then he could maybe go and assist or whatever. But the generic leader stats are probably just about as good as anybody else. So, but that's what we did. We just have an assigned generic guy. So when they do things, they have the stat benefits of the generic leader. So that's pretty much where we are with that. There you go.
Those brigades can only take like five,
Yeah.
and this one
See,
is at
this,
6.
This almost makes me want to just leave the camera running because of these great snippets from Tom. He just pointed out something that could be important, maybe not, but a person might say, okay, why am I creating brigades? We had discussed this, or why am I creating detachments? One, because he has essentially, if you look at the scale, this is about a 1 mile long deployment of folks. And so that's a lot of people to just say, okay, across the river, and then, like if you give a move or an attack, the entire formation goes to that point. So he could say, let's take this hill line, but he might not want to move them in that way. That's a lot of people to just, come here, but he might want them to do other things. But now that he's got that flexibility of having those broken down into brigades, here's the biggest issue he just pointed out: fatigue. Now each of those brigades has a lot less fatigue. As a whole formation, that's 15 units. That's up to 15 fatigue before they even have to worry about braking and routing and all those checks. But now if they're broken down into units of like 5, that's a lot less fatigue that each person can take. So yes, These are great command decisions at this high level that are I like about the game. But now he's very more flexible in his command and control, but combat-wise, they're a little more breaky because they don't have as much fatigue as the overall group. So I wanted to share that because I thought that was a very important thing to have, in our minds as we move forward. Just a quick Russian deployment. On the main road, they could go to 24 inches, which brings them, since they were on a move, I did stop them just short of the skirmish range because I didn't want his skirmishers firing into a deployed unit or even a half, partially deployed. So we'll start to deploy along this line. So they'll have to come forward if they want to do anything. And then the second division is coming up. And we still have some units off the board because they just didn't quite fit based on the deployment. But this was the not as good road, had 20-inch movement. So here they are, and they're going to, very similar, just maybe get up a little bit closer, and then they can start to deploy so we can defend this hilltop. And that was kind of their orders, or the overall army I put down was pretty much just to kind of defend this hilltop area to keep. I went with instead of just saying take the village, I went with a more detailed order for the army to follow, and we'll see if that works out and makes sense. But that's kind of their order: is defend the hill line, protect the southern forest to keep the French from coming in. But I figured by doing it that way, I can actually kind of deploy and move things as necessary in defense of the southern wood, versus just saying, take a particular point, because I don't see how I could fit two full formations of soldiers onto one specific piece of land. So we just went with a more broad and defined force or army objective for them. That's where we are. That's our deployment. So we'll continue on to the next phases. There probably isn't much here. The first phase pretty much was just issuing orders because we couldn't really do anything. Now we've moved, but there's nothing ready for combat. I know there's still deploy and things like that, but the rest of this turn we won't film because it will also go fairly quickly. End of turn movement for turn number 2, which actually ends the turn because there's no skirmish, but we have begun the deployment of Russian troops. So each formation decided to take a point of fatigue to offset the penalty of deploying into dense, which paid off pretty good because I was able to deploy 5. From this point forward, because I don't want to accumulate fatigue, I think I'll just take my chances and roll. But it is a pretty heavy penalty, so they will slowly be deploying. But I did want to put some kind of frontage out. That way, if he does cross the river, that gives me a chance to move a little bit. The thing is, though, even though these are deployed because they're still part of a partially deployed unit, they can still only move up to 225 yards. They don't get the full movement benefit yet. So they still have a long ways to go, literally, length of their deployed formations before they can actually start moving freely to try and get really good defensive positions. But they do have troops out. That's where we are. So that's the end of turn 2 because, again, there is no skirmishing, no combat, and we'll just cycle back on through again till the end of something important. But we'll be starting turn 3 now.
Turn 3.
End of turn 3. So this time with my deployment, I didn't take the rush. I just rolled. I had a -3. So I was able to pop out 2 more units for this first division, 3 more units for that division. Tom has now issued orders for units that he forgot he had because he was focused on here. But now everybody that we had mentioned before, that's on the table, he's issued orders for. So I'm still just trying to bring people up. And as I was doing this, it really gets me thinking that maybe what's different that from other Napoleonic games where the focus is on the tactics because your folks are already usually deployed and on the table, this is a different level where I'm really now focused on how do I fit my people on the board in this really crummy terrain which limits my movement and how many people I can deploy. So my level of thinking right now is completely different than who's going to attack who. I'm really trying to think about how do I bring the people and the beans and bullets on, because I can't really do a whole lot. And if he was to cross now, we're okay. I have about 10 people, 10 battalions each kind of on the board, but he still has a lot more firepower across the river if he decides to cross. So one thing that he's done, he hasn't told me, but he has set his force objective, and I don't know what orders he has, but I'm curious to see how it turns out. But this is where we are at the end of turn 3. Partially deployed Russian formations. The French are still glaring across from the little river there, and then he's got other folks that may or may not be coming on soon. All right, that's the end of 3. We'll see you in another few minutes.
Cavalry, artillery, and skirmish is coming up.
All right, perfect. So this is what it looks like after turn 3 movement. Tom has brought, of his detachments that he created, he brought one detachment across the river, and they are now engaged with the Russians there. The Russians were trying to deploy. I didn't put enough on this side, so he was able to double up here, but I'm trying to make up for that now with moving forward and deploying out that direction to help out. And one thing didn't really make a whole lot of difference, but is important, is that because technically my troops did reach their force objective, they automatically convert to defend, but now what they're doing is shifting around, because you are allowed to shift facings and move and things like that to conform to your area, and still deploy. So even though they're doing the same thing as if they were on a move, they're technically on a defend. So they're here, and I actually have room on the table now to bring up the cannons, which really aren't going to do a whole lot currently, but they're coming. So we got some battle that will take place there. Then the French with his other detachment crossed, and they're is it skirmish range? I think he pulled himself to be within skirmish range, so we'll check that out here in a minute.
Front line to front line is in skirmish range.
About 6 there.
Yep.
Yeah, so perfect.
We're just a little out of the back line.
So we'll see.
All the guys in the front are good. The guys back, well, that guy is probably good too. So he's in 6. He's in 6.
So this would have been, luckily, because I had enough people up front, I did not feel the need to take another point of fatigue in order to rush deploy. I still do have a few things in reserve, but it's things that I couldn't really use anyhow. But as soon as this last unit, well, technically, since this last unit deployed, the last one pops out. So actually, if I pause after this, I actually can go ahead and bring all this stuff out. This will all go to the reserve area. He can come out because he's the last person, so he comes out for free. But the sappers and everybody else will go to the... So no big deal on that. I'll just pop them out. He still can only move the 225 yards, so it's not like he can still move very far. Well, then again, half of that because it's dense.
Well,
or
you're on deployment, so I guess you take the 225.
I got just pop, but any movement past that is half. Yeah, so I'll pop him out. We'll put everybody else in their reserve area. But that's pretty much where we're at. So we're about to start do some shooting after I tidy up this deployment. Thought I would bring the camera over here. Yep, now it's officially starting the skirmish. Just one clarification. They could pop out, but the reserve area is like behind the last rear wave, and the last rear wave is still back here. So really, they might be in reserve, but they still really didn't need to move. Now, the Reformation area is off the board, so if anybody has to go to the Reform area, I'll just have to shift them somewhere off the board. And this group here is still entirely in a world of hurt because they're still ployed. But now we're going to do the skirmish.
Yeah. This might be where we stop the camera for a bit and
they just want to see the dice roll.
Talk about what we're going to have.
All right, we're going to talk it out, and we'll come back and show you. Okay, cool. We're about to roll dice, so I'm not going to go too detailed, but essentially we added up for our light units. They're both effective doctrines, so I ended up with a plus 11. The French end up with a plus 9. So we're going to roll for that. I don't think there was any other. That was all the penalties. So just the 2 dice 6. So we're guaranteed at least one forced assessment each. So Tom's rolling.
And
7 and you're
So-
9.
plus 9, still only one assessment.
Still only one
So I don't get
assessment.
the 20.
Right. So I mean, if I roll like a 10, I might get a still one assessment, but the penalty would be a -2. But it depends on how well I roll. 9 plus 11 is a 20. So it's going to be one assessment
With a
with a -2 when you get to that point. Perfect. And I think that's it. Now we can just check for leader.
leader fate. Nobody is
Okay.
attached directly on my side. 4,
Oh,
so
you're
I'm good.
4.
That's not nice.
And I'm good. Now we can check assessment. So we'll turn the camera off for that and come back with final assessment results when we're done with that.
Up there, and I'm an 11.
Which is good.
I
Nothing
got
happens.
no effect for, I guess that's no effect.
No effect. All right. And I was also, at the end of the calculations, a +1. So let's go. Not as, oh, that's not a good start. Okay, so he had no effect, but that's a sucky start for me. So that's a 4. 0 to 4, that's going to be 2 fatigue at least. No irregulars. I have no irregulars, which is true. I don't have irregulars either. No impetuous. No cavalry. No, well, the artillery, it says retires half, but they're in the back anyway. They didn't go anywhere.
When they retire, they go
To the Reformation area, which yeah, they did fully deploy, so they're off board. I'll have to bring them over here. Only half of them retire, so
Well, half a D6.
half of D6, half of 1 is 1. So 1 falls back, but they gain +2 fatigue, and that's it for skirmish. All right, hey, Tom had to step away for a pee break, but what he doesn't know is I've secretly replaced his Gatorade with Folgers. Let's see how he responds when he gets back. Okay, so in my mind, I thought that was funny because that's how those commercials used to be. Hey, let's secretly replace our coffee with Folgers. Get it? I don't even think Folgers is still a brand, so I don't think I can get a copyright infringement for saying that. All right, anyhow, this is where we are afterwards. This was just a skirmish. That's the first skirmish. We're going to do skirmish here next. Now, this is important because over here, I now have -3 fatigue total, which gives big penalty. I'll tell you, every point of fatigue is a real hurt to take. So the fact that my Russians now have 3 fatigue, that's going to be -3 on future assessments. And also for skirmish, every point of fatigue is -3 to my overall skirmish number. So they are effectively getting weaker. And I think now, as we get more experienced and the game moves quicker, that fatigue adds up. That's why games can go pretty quick, is because that fatigue is going to start mounting and making huge differences pretty soon. Over here, though, this will be where we do the next bit, and we'll see how this goes. But this will also have combat as well, and any fatigue gathered here from skirmish is going to have an effect on the upcoming combat. All right, but I'll go ahead and pause there. Since we're back, we can go ahead and calculate that out. Okay, so to shoot 'em up, we've calculated that I have, with the fatigue included, a 17 attack score for my skirmish, and the French have ended up with a 15. So we're going to roll 2 dice 6 here somewhere. What is that, a 5? And you're 15. So you get
15's 20.
20. Okay, so I have a pretty good chance I'm going to get barely. So 21. So I've just barely got the threshold of the -2 on his assessment. Okay, so we'll go ahead and, well, let's do leader check real quick before we. I rolled a 5. He got snake eye, or he got boxcars. He's lucky. Okay, so we'll come back after the assessment and see where we are. Okay, we did the math. He's at a +1. I'm at a 0. So he's got a 9.
10.
Plus his 1 is 10. Okay, so again, that's all, again, no effect. Lucky him. And I got a +0, which is a 9. Crap, I needed that +1. So essentially, what that means for me, if we're reading it, again, no irregulars, I'm not impetuous, I don't have to evade, or attack on those modes, no cavalry. It's just +1 fatigue. So I'm telling you, those little fatigues add up. But there we are. We're getting tired. Running through. So if I just swing the camera to make you all nauseous and motion sickness, this dense terrain, I had a feeling that initial point of fatigue to rush, yes, it got my men out, but it tired them out already. And believe it, that 1 point of fatigue, as you can see, is already making a difference down the road. So in the future, kids, don't do it. It's not worth it. Okay, great. We'll be back at the, we got combat next.
Yep.
All right, well, we're going to figure some combat and roll some dice for that. See you then. Well, lucky me, even in a poor situation, we rolled. We're going to start the combat from here because our leader ratings were all the same. So we rolled off. We're starting here and going to work our way around. He's got +8. I have +7. And he rolled 6. So he's got
6
+8.
+8 is 14.
14. So now I'm going to roll shaky camera syndrome. 6 and 7 is 13.
8 and 6 is
14. So you won by 1.
Yep.
So Tom is eking. So he's been eking me out by +1 every time, but that adds up. All right. So that puts me lost by less than 3. So they're going to retire. Nothing about being supported or anything. It just says they retire. But infantry that retire, they just fall back to 225 yards. So they're just going to fall. And I think he just falls back behind the guy in back. But no fatigue. Cavalry gets a fatigue. So that's lucky. I just retire, but that breaks combat. So that stops the combat there. We'd go to the next thing. But anywho, and I don't think he gets a breakthrough because he won by 1. Yep. So he's hold position. So neither of us gain fatigue, but some Russians fall back. All right, cool. We'll check some more combat in a moment. Well, we got the new numbers. So new unit, this is going to have +5 because he has some multiple attackers on him. And then Tom is still at a +8. So what do you got?
All right.
He's rolling.
6, 7, and 8 is 15.
15. All right, and I'm adding 5, so I need to roll really high. Oh, where's the dice? Oh, I did not roll really high. So that's 5 + 5 is a 10. Oof, that's really bad. So what did you get? You had a
15.
15. So I lost by 5. Well, that's right here. Lost 4 to 6. So retire if supported, which they are supported. And they gain +1. Nope, they still don't gain fatigue because it says if they're unsupported, they would route to reformation area and gain fatigue. So this is, luckily he's supported, so he's just going to fall back behind. Here comes the motion sickness. So he's going to fall back. But since there's a dude here, we just kind of, this might not be 100% correct, but it made sense to us. So he kind of just falls back in line. So basically, our line is pushing back but still holding, and that breaks combat.
Well,
so
no, but I've got a breakthrough.
Oh, because he won by. So these guys are going to come forward and
Him or him, I don't.
Yeah, which one would you like?
I think I'm going here.
Okay, so that creates a brand new combat. Okay, all right, so we'll be back for that momentarily. Well, I guess I have to stop this. All right, just to give you the rundown, he took this unit that was at an angle, we moved up, but said that in the process of coming, they would square up. This way, he is supported. If he gets one of those results, he'll be supported. But he's now at a +7 because he lost his initial point of shock, and I'm still at a +5. And we'll do some...
All right, so +7. Boxcars is what I need. Oh,
and he got boxcar. Oh my gosh, he
19.
did it. So he's at a 23 total, if math is right.
Well, 12 plus, I said 7 is 19.
Oh, it's 19. Oh, where did I get 23?
Yeah.
Thank goodness it's not 23.
12 plus 7
I never
is
said
19.
math was my strong point. That's why I just make YouTube videos and nothing else, because I can't do math. So I rolled a 4. Okay, I rolled a 10. 10 plus my 5 is 15 to his 19. So I lost by 4. Thank goodness it wasn't, it's still bad. Because that's still retire if supported, but I gain no fatigue. And they are supported, so forgive the shaky camera. That's this guy. So he's going to fall back. I'm going to move the trees. It's still dense, don't worry, team. So he's going to come back. And since he was right there, I'm tearing up the terrain. Sorry about that.
Oh,
And he got a breakthrough.
And I got a breakthrough. So that's another loss.
Yeah, it's another. I'm at 3.
All right.
I'll mark that. Oh,
Ooh.
you shifted. Because if it was straight, I bet he would have been touching 2 of them guys.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
He says, I don't want to do that. All right. I will let him shift it
All
there.
right, I mean, can I get within 45
one-on-one.
degrees forward?
Well, he took the 45 degrees. I'm marking down. I got I have a dice I'm using over here to track my loss here. So I'm going to do a shaky camera. And I'm just put my little tracker on a 3. All right.
Let's see, let's look that up. Because if I was able to wheel in to square up, what can I do on a breakthrough?
Oh, I think that's probably pretty good. All right, but he's going to verify the breakthrough. I think I would be okay if he did a 45 degree and shifted to square up with the other ones instead of a straight through, but we're going to confirm the actual rules. We'll be back to roll dice in a little bit. We'll talk about that. We said we wouldn't film all the talking, but what are you thinking?
I don't know. I mean, when we'll look at a diagram on when you're considered into the enemy's reformation area. Now that doesn't matter right now in the combat, but when everything's separated and we're going to do the assessment part, who knows?
But see, that's your other concern. So that was concern 1. At what point would he be behind the lines? Because that is on the assessment. 2 is, his concern is look how far this unit has pushed through and all his support is like way back there. I think really he's at a point where if he loses now, okay, so far the dice and the bonuses have been going his way, but let's just say he loses a little bit. He's only going to have to retire just a tad bit back.
So far he's still supported because he's got within 225 yards. So
he's still supported.
He's still got some support.
So,
but if he wins again, he's going to be beyond the 225.
Yeah, so at some point, he's going to have, in my dream dice rolling, thanks Diet Coke, I would have another fallback, he would push, we'd have one more combat, I'd roll boxcars, he'd roll snake eyes, then he would fail by enough that unit was so far forward it'd actually have to retire back to the Reformation area because it's no longer supported. That would be awesome. However, that's not how it's been going so far. But he's still at +7, I'm still at +5. Alright,
there you go.
Let's do it. He's got dice.
Boxcars again. Nope.
He rolled a 6 plus his
6
7.
plus 7 is 13.
13. Alright, here we go. I'm feeling lucky. It's my day. 5 and 5 is 10. So I lost by 3. But see, that's okay because it's still a retire and he does not get a breakthrough. It halts. So he pushes back. Nobody gains fatigue off all of that. But now you might be saying, so what's the big deal?
That was the 4th loss, right? That's where it's going to come up.
Yeah, that matters too. Okay, so here we go. Shaky camera. Put my little game loss token tracker. Yeah, because that's going to be a penalty on the assessment. But see, now that's the question we have. We were saying if he pushed back at least equal with my undeployed people, with my ployed, we could say maybe he had pushed far enough that he was in the rear. But he didn't quite make it. But yeah, I do have a lot of penalties now because of this on my assessment, or some penalties. So this is still looking bad for the Russians. All right, we're going to do some mathematics and we'll come back with the results of the assessment. All right, so he's
+3. Ooh, that sucked.
Oh, he rolled a 5. Oh, that's good for me. So he rolled snake eyes plus his 3. So we're doing the assessment. We've done the math. He was adding what to that? +3?
+3. I got a 5.
So he's got 5 total.
I will gain a fatigue out of that for a 5.
Oh, not much. Yeah, that's still really good for him, that 1 fatigue. I had 3 fatigue, So all my bonuses come out to where I actually have -2 on my roll. So he had a +3, I got -2. So this is where I really, really want boxcars. Well, 10 is close, so I got to 5 to 9. Same result. That's another point of fatigue on Laskovich. So they're now a -4 fatigue. But at least he now got his first point of fatigue. Now, as far as status check, we're good. Because if fatigue, if you can read that, there's glare, sorry. If fatigue equals the number of deployed units, and I haven't gone above 1.5, and I have like 100 units out there right now. So I'm good as far as the status check. However, those fatigue points are adding up to affect everything. Because right now, when we go back to skirmish, if it's -3 per point of fatigue on a skirmish check, and I have 4 fatigue, that's -12. So I used to be rocking like skirmish scores of like 17, like pretty good. Now I'm going to subtract 12 from that. So their fatigue and their combat effectiveness is quickly eroding away. All right, great. We'll see you again for the next. This was turn 3, wasn't it?
This
4?
was the end of turn, well, not the end of turn 4. That was just all the combat for turn 4.
Okay. We got to.
We still have order conversion, which I doubt there are.
So I think that's pretty much the end of turn 4. Okay, so we'll be back.
And we did assessment, yeah, that's the end of turn 4.
So we'll be back later after we've done movement and I got to finish deployment. So we're coming up on turn 5. All right, cool. Thanks. See you all in a few minutes. Okay, just a quick summary of movements. After deploy, well, we moved first, but luckily on my deploy I had 3 units left to deploy. So basically that automatically comes out because at a minimum you can deploy 2 and then the last unit comes out for free. This is now the reserve area with the artillery and sappers ready to come forward. I am deploying a lot of Russian units out this way to cover that flank because the French are coming in strong. So we're moving our 3 inches that way. And I still have a few coming this way because he technically still has people there. So this is a cluster. It takes 2 of these for like essentially, I mean each is a battalion, but this is like the 1st battalion and 2nd battalion. But at this point, it's very fragmented on the command and control because once the French came up, the Russians just started trying to put people wherever they were needed. So I have a mixture of units throughout. Here, it's more orderly over on my 2nd division, and it's a little more squared up. So we've got nice 2 solid lines of Russians. We've got the Jaegers out front, and they're supported by the line battalions, and then he's got his French here. This would seem to maybe favor the Russians a little bit, but we have fatigue, and I think this is his French formation that has no fatigue. So they're going to be really fresh for the fight. We're going to have some troubles, but numerically we've got an advantage here, but that might not be enough. Over here, it's still small units of French attacking, but they still have a huge advantage in terms of fatigue. But I still have a lot of units here to cover the retire, so we might fall back, which in turn would shift where the reformation area is. But if he still pushes through a little bit more, he'll be past my frontline units, and then I'll have penalties on my assessment. So I'm hoping the Russians can hold. Otherwise, we'll all have to fall back at some point. So this could be bad on my 1st formation. But anyway, that's where we're at. Now he still has his group over here. And just to top off the fact that his little groups of French are totally whipping us right now, there's the whole another formation of French coming in fresh off the boat. We are, just to summarize as I continue to knock stuff off with my shirt, sorry about the whiplash, I'll get that in a second. Oh, he was somewhere. Oh my gosh, he's right there. Okay, so this is the problem with artillery. One is we're going to try and commit it, but the problem with the committing is it's still going to be in dense, and then there's no range or anything like that. But at least we're trying to bring it up. It's not good. Okay, I'm going to get this artillery I knocked down, and then we're going to do some math. Okay, we have decided that French are going to have a 15 to the Russian 19 with penalties and everything applied. So he's going to roll 2 dice 6.
15, 26.
26. Okay, now I've got a 19. So we're going to roll 19 and 5, so 24. But basically that means 1 assessment each and a penalty of 2 on the assessment, because that's every 20,
Yep,
every 10
every 10.
points. That's where we're at. Okay, so we're going to do some assessment checks and tell you what happens right after that. Okay, here comes the shaky camera. So he's got a +1, and he rolls a 10.
10. He's good.
Still, he's nailing it
+1.
every time. Okay. All right, now I've got a -2. That's bad. So that's in the really bad column. Okay, so let's...
That's not, no, 0 to 4. It's not in the really bad.
Okay, it's not as bad, but boy, it's still... Well, let me see. Yeah, because what did I say, -2? So I'm at a 1. Yeah. Well, it's still 2 fatigue. Half my die 6 batteries, and I just brought one out, but he's about to retire. So 3, all the artillery huffs it out. All right, so I'm going to add 2 fatigue and then take 2 artillery off. And we rolled our leader check. We forgot about that, but we rolled that. So he got nothing bad happened. Me, 2 more fatigue. All the artillery takes a jog. And then we're going to do the next skirmish and combat. I guess we should have done all skirmish. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's all done. All right, so we're going to do this next formation here after I write these down. Okay, so here's what we got. With penalties, I'm at a +3 on skirmish, and Tom's at a +12, so he's going to roll. So he's already got 1 forced assessment.
And +8 more is 20.
So he's going to have an assessment with a 2 penalty for me. Now I get to add 3, so this is bad. My guys are running out of ammo. They're scared. They're shooting with their eyes closed.
And
they get 1 assessment. So yay, that's going to force our leader checks.
Leader checks.
Nothing there.
No snake eyes.
Nothing over there.
Oh.
And we'll do assessments and tell you the results of that in a moment.
So they're both even then.
Yep.
They're both at 5.
You have 5 fatigue?
No. Both your front.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
now,
I mean, they're both in the same.
Oh, my guys are
amount of
in
fatigue.
just as bad.
I got 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got a much smaller
I
unit.
was like, how did you get there?
My 2 is probably just an equivalent of your 5.
Yeah. Yeah, but that still makes you you're still more effective because those penalties don't affect you as much on those rolls.
They don't yet, yeah. Because I only got 2.
Yeah.
And we're going into combat.
Yeah. Not. Which means, well, so I'm still at -1 because it's every full 3, because I got 5. So I mean, I'm still -1. Luckily,
Still, right, yeah,
still
cool.
just -1.
All right, let's see. I guess we're going to have to determine which way we're going to do this.
Right.
And if we're both Bs.
Yeah. So we can start with this one first.
And let's see. The roll off is going to determine.
So 6. All right. Where would you like to start?
Let's see. How would I want to start this? It looks like I'm just squared up against all the same type of infantry. So it doesn't matter. I'll start here.
Okay.
Because if I start here, I still have 2 unsupported. Might have been something to think about when placing the support. If I was going to start, well, I wouldn't know who would win the roll, but it was either going to start from that side or that side. Maybe that's the appropriate.
Yeah, because they're not support. So depending on how lucky the rolls are, they might feel that.
Well, let's see how this goes down.
Yeah.
So we're back into a fresh round of combat. So we've got a commander tactical rating of plus.
Mine are +1s.
I've got a 5, so that's 6. First round of combat again, he's got an S1, so he's at 7. And he is an L indents 8.
Okay. And I'm...
Oh, wait, we're not done yet.
Oh.
I don't have any fatigue. I gotta make sure no fatigue to make a difference. So, 8.
Okay. Now me. 1 for the leader, 5 for the peoples, that's 6. I then have my, I don't get an S, but I get an L, so I'm at 7. and I was saving the fatigue, -1 because I've got 5 fatigues. So I think I'm a 6.
6. I think that's right.
I have no shock or anything
2
else.
and 8.
6
The
to
first
8.
round of combat going in.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to edit that because I didn't hit stop. Okay. So you've got a +6. I guess I have to edit this on the
You got
video.
6, I got 8.
Okay, so you're
6, 18.
18. All right, and I'm adding 6. 4, so I got a 10 to your 18. That's bad. That's bad. That's a difference of 8. All right, so I lost by 8, so that is a fatigue, and it just says that guy routes to the Reformation area. All right, but you won by more than 4, so you...
I get a breakthrough.
Yep, no fatigue breakthrough. All right, I'm going to put them in the Reformation area. Okay, yeah, that's bad.
Comes out.
Thank you.
He moves forward.
Nice. All right.
That's an L1.
So I'll go ahead and just pause here, and we'll just do all the combat and show the aftermath because it's going to look bad, I think. All right. So now, just to kind of bring people up to speed, we just went ahead and did all the combat. So we did all of the skirmishing and combat here and so forth. Right now we're doing assessments. So we're going to do an assessment for this battle over here. Tom ended up with penalties at a +1 penalty, if you want to call it that, on his assessment check. I'm going to be at a -14. It was bad. Should have been filmed, but I'm glad I didn't. So here comes Tom's roll. So he got a
6.
6 total.
In total. A 5 to 6 gains me 1 fatigue.
1 fatigue. Okay, now me with a -14. We're going to roll some dice. So here we go.
That was the 108.
Here. All right, 6. So I'm at a -8. Now if I look down here, -5 to -9. Irregulars are removed. We're good. Cavalry route, we're fine. Cavalry formations break and are removed. No, we're good. Well, so is it a cavalry route or cavalry formations break? I'm not sure. I don't have cavalry.
There's the differences between if you're a mixed formation or a cavalry formation.
I'll take it if you're mixed. So luckily none.
You're not.
My artillery is already retired, and I gained 5 fatigue. Of course, why wouldn't I gain 5 fatigue? That's 5 fatigue on top of the 10 I already have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now why does that matter? Right now, we do a status check. Tom with his like 1 or 2 fatigue, 2 fatigue, 3. You have like 2 fatigue?
I got 3 fatigue.
3 fatigue. So he still has like 5 units. So technically, he's good. They don't retire or anything like that. However, I've already had some folks route, so what we're going to have to do is give you whiplash. I know y'all don't like this, but this is easy for me. Okay, with 15 fatigue, and I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that 1.5? Because I think if you take half of that, even if you round it down, let's say that's 13.
Would be at just exactly at 15, 1.5, right? You got 9 units?
Yeah.
Then half of 9 is 4.5.
So I guess you would round up, so 5.
Add that to 9 is 15.
15.
And you got 15.
Well, 9 and 4 is, wait, am I saying 9 and 5?
9
9 and 5 is 14.
Well, yeah, 9 and 5 is 14. Well,
So almost 1.5 times.
Well, you got 15 fatigue and
14. I'm 1 under 1.5.
15 fatigue, 9 units.
So that would be
9 times 1.5 is
14.
you're over 1.5.
Well, what's my 1.5? Yeah, I never was good at that part. Well, let's just say we'll go with it. Well, would 15 be 1.5?
Yeah.
So, but I only got,
You only got 9 good units.
right.
So if I had
But
9
1.5.
fatigue, if I had 9 fatigue on you, you would be at 100%.
Right.
But I have 15 fatigue on you.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you've gone beyond. You're
So
right.
I'm over 100.
I was thinking
1.5.
something else. I was trying to think how I could keep them, but no, I think they're gone. Sadly, yeah. Okay. Well then, so what does that mean? If I am at 1.5, if fatigue equals 1.5 deployed units, move formation to 24 inches from enemy, replace orders with broken status, remove cavalry. So they uproot and they're going to go back to the reformation area, which is off table. Now at this point, we were saying that effectively moves them out of the game. I mean, I could go back and rally and do all kinds of stuff to try and bring them back at some point. But Tom, because he's now reached his objective area with those units here, I'll show you the map while I talk here. So he said he's pretty much can stay there. They're on defend now, and then all the Russians in that area have broken away, and I have to spend time trying to bring them back. So he's got good control of that spot. We're going to do assessments for here in just a second, but I think they're going to be a little bit better off, the Russians will be, but it's still going to be tough. They might retire because they're getting some fatigue as well. But overall, though, I think the French are doing good. So yes, my dice rolls have been that poor because he still has an entire fresh division coming up, and I have no reinforcements, so everything that I had is on the board. So this might be a French victory when it's all said and done. Okay, well, let's do this assessment. We'll come back and find out. Wow-wee. Oh, now it's recording. I wonder if I didn't have it recording before. Let me just do this again if I need to. So after we did assessments, I've got, 14 units on the board still? 12 units on the board, and I only had like 9 fatigue, so they're fine. But the artillery is going to come off. They lost all their units, so I'm going to take them off, and we'll see how it looks here in a second. So we'll come back. Let me see if I actually end the recording this time.
Just
right.
for the sake of finishing it out, we want to just play it out because
So, yeah, this is the point where we're at, and Tom has a good point. One, he set up all this beautiful terrain. We got a great table. We might have to fight a different battle and just call it the battle of something else and maybe just reuse your table layout, because we only used this back end of the board and it was a Russian route. So what we have is the Russian division over here is gone, right? And if I give you whiplash for a second, this is the reformation area. They're all here. But remember, I got like 15 fatigue. And in order to get them out, I'll have to start, attach the force commander, kick out some units, and that will burn off like 4 fatigue. But then, then I can make rolls to rally them out. But it's going to be forever before I can really bring them back onto the board in any kind of meaningful fashion. So yeah, but even if I do, that's still... if I burn off 4 fatigue, let's say that was enough to start bringing them back, right, so that they're not broken, that's still going to be minus 14. That still leaves them with, if I had, how much fatigue did I say?
15.
15. If I burn off 4, I'm still going to be 11 fatigue going into battles. And Tom brought up a good point. When you hit skirmish, it's minus 3 per point of fatigue you have. So even with 11... minus 3 fatigue, that's minus 33 on there. They're not skirmishing. That's terrible. So even if I brought them back, they can't skirmish. If I bring the artillery back, there's a chance, but as soon as they hit combat, there's penalties to that too. I mean, the artillery could help offset some of that minus 33, but I don't think enough to make them combat effective as far as skirmish. Which, here comes whiplash, brings us to this group over here. They're still on the table, but they're in the same boat. They have 9 fatigue, so that's minus 27 on their skirmish. So they still can't even force any assessments. And the French are coming on fresh. So that small group there has devastated this division. And look what we have. Another fresh group. This is one of his detachments he made earlier. and then he still has his whole other French division coming on, and I've got no reinforcements. So really, we were thinking this was probably a French victory, like a huge victory. But we thought, well, we might continue on another time just because he took the time to set up the train. Because we didn't get to use it. Like, we did not advance beyond this area, and the Russians just totally got trounced. So we thought, well, we would play it through just to use the train. But maybe we just might... We could fight it again and flip sides. I'll play the French next time. Maybe we'll have a better outcome for the Russians if we flip sides.
You never know.
That might be what we'll discuss.
Maybe we just move on to the next finish this one out and move on to the next engagement in the book.
We could do that too. Well, we'll discuss that later.
Some of the same units will show up again.
Yeah,
and the same leaders.
We'll figure it out. We'll do something. But yeah, this one I think, we would play it out just for the sake of playing it out because Tom really wants to see the Russians forced from the field utterly. But that's where we are right now, and next time we play, you'll see what happens. But that kind of sums up the outcome: a complete French victory. Now, how did that compare historically?
I would say,
since
historically the Russians initiated their attack, and I think that got the French off foot, so to speak.
Right.
So the Russians and the French battled out along the ravine, and the Russians broke contact, but they did not get routed.
Not like I did. All right. And this is why I work from home and I don't lead armies. Okay. I think we'll leave it at that point. So thank you for watching. Enjoy it, and we'll look forward to the next one.